This episode is brought to you by Google Gemini. With the Gemini app, you can talk live and have a real-time conversation with an AI assistant. It's great for all kinds of things, like if you want to practice for an upcoming interview, ask for advice on things to do in a new city, or brainstorm creative ideas. And by the way, this script was actually read by Gemini. Download the Gemini app for iOS and Android today. Must be 18 plus to use Gemini Live.
The sounds of the season can often sound like this.
So, when are we getting some grandkids?
But with Hilton's Season to Stay sale, they could sound a bit more like this. Or this. Stay and save up to 20% off when you book before January 5th at Hilton.com. Hilton, for the stay. Minimum 2-night stay required. Excludes luxury and all-inclusive properties. Terms and conditions apply.
I'm Joseph.
And I'm Nick.
This is Fish Jelly.
Oh, yes.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Okay.
Oh, good.
That sound pre-recorded, like you were, like, no matter what I said, you were going to respond that way.
No, not at all. Never.
We're recording this early because we won't be together on our normal recording day.
That's correct.
That's okay. We have stuff to talk about.
Ah.
First off, there's a YouTube channel called Twin Talk with the Sibley twins.
Uh-huh.
They do like entertainment type videos. I noticed they talk a lot lately about the royal family and Meghan and Prince Harry, but they recently posted about us and recommended people check us out. So we had a lot of people subscribe, saying that they subscribe because of the Twin Talk with the Sibley twins. So shout out to those people.
Yes.
I hope they like our content.
Oh, lovely.
So we reviewed the 688, the Tyler Perry movie, which I wasn't fully satisfied with. I didn't think it was the worst movie ever, but it inspired me to watch a documentary that's available on PBS, which is also titled The 688 from 2019.
72 minutes.
And so I thought, since I had posted about it, I thought it might be interesting to talk about some of the things that we found interesting. But I did want to start off by saying that there were a lot of comments on the video about why did I say that Tyler Perry was inspired by an article he read. That's because there's writing credit given to Kevin Heimel, who wrote an article called Fighting a Two-Front War, which talked about the women from the 688. And then people wanted to comment, which I removed a lot of comments, but people were saying like, basically like how stupid to say that when he, obviously spoke to Lena Dericourt Bell King and she watched it and approved of it before she died. But
that's not writing credit.
Yeah, he didn't give her writing credit. He didn't give her story credit. He could have.
No,
lots of filmmakers do that because they want to give credit where credit's due. So I just said that based off of who he gave credit to. But yes,
it's on. Go to www.imdb.com and you can type in 6888, or you can go to Wikipedia, which although that is not always a source of correct information all the time, but they usually have the basics down when it comes to films and who's credited on it.
But anyway, some things first off, this documentary, it's nice because we get to listen to some of the women from the 6888, like archival.
A lot of it's archival, yes.
Footage of them speaking in their own words. So I think that's probably the most valuable part of it. Just to be authentic, I don't think this is a very well put together documentary.
No, well, it was for PBS. It's pretty shoddy based on the organization of it and also the audio.
Well, the editing, the audio, yeah, it's pretty, I would say it's maybe subpar, but the content is valuable.
Some of it, yes.
So some of the things that focused on that I was surprised we didn't focus on in the Tyler Perry film was the sort of the idea that Blacks were considered mentally unfit for duty. in the armed forces and were relegated to perform only menial tasks. But the irony in that they had to do the same like basic training. So they had to meet the same standards, but they weren't allowed to perform the same duties.
And the Army was segregated until 1948.
So
Truman.
So I was surprised that the film didn't focus a little bit more on that to highlight how competent these women were. And then, in the Tyler Perry film, Oprah portrays Mary McLeod Bethune. And, maybe because it was Oprah, because really we just have sort of the one scene, which I'm sure they shot in a day.
That, yes.
Where it's Susan Sarandon, Sam Waterston, and Oprah in the Oval Office talking to the general. So I'm sure the time was limited. But I think it would have been interesting to spend more time with Mary McLeod Bethune and her accomplishments that led up to her even having a space in the White House.
Well, yeah, her working relationship with Eleanor Roosevelt.
Right, because as it is, if a person didn't know anything, you would think that, this woman was just sort of like a token Black woman who was allowed to kind of speak on. And because the way the general is so dismissive towards her, you would think that she really didn't have the foundation to be where she was, but she did. So I was surprised, I'm not surprised by Tyler Perry's productions, but it would have been interesting to see more of that.
Well, stuff happens, but it's presented in a way that the gravity of the situation isn't there, much like the burial of the women that from the 6888 that died in the automobile accident, that knowing that there are only 4 women in the Normandy American Cemetery, and 3 of them are from the 6888.
The 3 women who were, and their bodies were transferred there. So they were originally, which is another thing that I think could have been expounded on in the recent film, because we do get that awkward scene where we get several women saying like, my dad's a mortician. I work here. I work there. It's all very rushed, but I think highlighting the various skills of all of these women and how it really allowed them to excel in their situations would have been nice. But we learned that some of the women worked in funeral homes, and so they did the best they could to give their fellow soldiers the best burial they could give them. But then later those women, the 3 women, were transferred to the Normandy American Cemetery in France. Something else I didn't know was that women who were serving did not receive veteran benefits.
Well, is that surprising?
And that they weren't even technically considered enlisted.
Yeah, we get a snippet of talking to an archivist about how first they were classified as auxiliaries, and then of course also as after the onset of World War II, how that had to change because there was a manpower shortage.
I also I know a complaint I had in our review of the current film or the recent film was that there's no, like, these women set up their space in England because we're told that they were given like an abandoned school to renovate to be like their headquarters. But in this documentary, we understand that there were a lot of temporary structures that were installed to accommodate the women. And it was in the rundown school where it's like, rat pest infested. That was where they had to do their work, but where they were actually sleeping. And because in the Tyler Perry film, and in the review, I had said that it looks really nice where they are.
It does.
That's because those are new structures. It is just the old school where they set up their sort of production line that had subpar conditions. What were you going to say? I interrupted you.
No, I was also, what struck me was that on Sundays, they were allowed to interact with the local populists, and they would go have Sunday dinner with the English.
Yeah, and a lot of the women, either out of their own mouths or from family members, expressed that these women felt well received. And I believe this town they were in is Birmingham. Yeah, they felt well received, and many of them said they felt more accepted there than back home in the United States.
They go out dancing, go to movies. There wasn't this rampant segregation going on where they could, which restricted their movement.
Another thing that struck me that I would have liked to have seen more of in the newer film is we hear a lot about how the women felt like they had a really strong camaraderie as Black women, and they feel like that unique dynamic compared to other battalions allowed them to be so efficient and work so well together. We don't see that in the movie.
Well, no, and again, that's where I think the League of Their Own templates might have come in handy, is we don't get to know these women. There's a handful of women we focus on, kind of, but the ones that are auxiliary to the two leads, those we get superficial characteristics about them. Like, one's a good girl whose dad was a preacher. The other one is multiracial and could pass for white. Like, there's nothing that's defining about them as people.
Right. Speaking of templates, I was thinking as we were watching this documentary, the movie Lee with Kate Winslet.
Yes.
I thought that template would make a good format for a movie about these women, like having their daughters and like
learning about
learning about them, and then we hear these stories and how it inspired them, or inspires them.
What's interesting is we hear the children of a lot of these women reflect on, they were full grown adults before their parents said anything about this. Like, they had no idea. And there's one woman in particular whose mother was biracial, was Black and Mexican. Or no, she's Black and Mexican. Her mother was Mexican. Her father was Black. And like, I don't know, just there's such interesting details about her mom's experience that
I thought that was actually one of the better segments of the documentary, is hearing that woman talk, because she tells stories of how, well, first it's explained that because her mother was biracial and fair skinned, she was given the choice to either join the Black battalion or the white battalion.
And she chose the Black.
The Black, of course.
Well, because those white women would have been impossible to deal with.
But she tells a story about, or she shares some little things and then talks about how her mom had some friends and they have pictures. And I thought that felt very personal and moving. And then she even shares a story about how she found in some of her mom's belongings what she called voiceographs,
like a record,
like these tiny records where like kind of like how there are photo booths, but back then they had these booths where you could put money and get your voice recorded. And I thought that was a really special moment. But
yeah, I mean, think about how a really great writer could have incorporated elements like that into a story.
Like again, if a format would have been that we have like the descendants of these women learning about them and playing like a voiceograph and looking at photos, how much better it would have been. But
I think we were very fair to that film and didn't drag it nearly enough, because in fact, I'm recalling a scene right now that I wish I'd called out in our review, was during the gas drill, when Ebony Obsidian is struggling and she sees the specter of her dead white lover coaching her through it.
You did kind of mention it.
That shit was corny. That did not work. No.
Well, also the fact that sort of the main driving force of the narrative seems like
for Lena,
certainly for Lena, is that she wants to join the army because of her Jewish boyfriend who hasn't written her. Felt kind of like, okay. But in this documentary, we get to see Major Charity Adams speak for herself, which was really cool. And she tells a story about how she was able to present her women to General John C. Lee, and he was so impressed by them. And I thought that was really cool. But we also hear the story about...
And meeting Bill Clinton.
Yes, and the documentary actually opens with Bill Clinton in the 90s honoring the women.
The sounds of the season can often sound like this.
So, when are we getting some grandkids?
But with Hilton's Season to Stay sale, they could sound a bit more like this. Or this. Stay and save up to 20% off when you book before January 5th at Hilton.com. Hilton, for the stay. Minimum 2-night stay required. Excludes luxury and all-inclusive properties. Terms and conditions apply.
Hey, it's Bill Simmons from the Bill Simmons Podcast here to tell you about Michelob Ultra Courtside. It's getting fans closer to the NBA with a chance to win prizes like courtside seats, a trip to All-Star Weekend, and much more. Check it out at MichelobUltra.com/courtside. Michelob Ultra Superior Access, Courtside 24-25 sweepstakes, no purchase necessary. Open to U.S. residents 21 and up. Begins on October 1st, 2024, ends July 1st, 2025. Multiple entry periods. Visit MichelobUltra.com/courtside for free entry deadlines, and official rules. Message and data rates may apply. Void where prohibited.
And ending with Michelle Obama.
And it ends with Michelle Obama.
We get a clip from that in the Perry film, but yeah.
That's right. Also, this documentary has the first Black female major general talking.
She was interesting to listen to.
Yeah. So that's cool. Someone tells a story of the scene in the Tyler Perry movie at the end when the general comes in and wants to do an inspection, and he's mad that not all 855 women are there because they work 24 hours. So they work in 3 shifts. So some women were asleep when he showed up. So I thought the recounting of that was really cool, but something I actually wish the Tyler Perry film would have ended with, because we learned that after that incident, and of course the general wanting to have her court-martialed, realized that he was also in the wrong, and then sometime later actually apologized to Major Adams. I feel like the Tyler Perry film should have ended with the general apologizing to her versus them like
being saluted by that other racist.
Yeah.
Like, who cares about that?
Something else I learned was that the women participated in sporting tournaments. Like they were quite active and had difficulties oftentimes because of racism participating in some sports. I thought those stories were really interesting. You already talked about the women being buried at Normandy. I do want to say, though, the score of this documentary,
a constant piano tinkle.
There's like this, yeah. That kind of became a little like mind-numbing.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, is this leading to something? Because usually those kind of things follow crescendo of information to help, guide us through the emotional highs and lows. But it was no.
There's a cool story about Major Adams taking a trip on the Queen Mary with her battalion and also other troops. So like an integrated boat trip, and the captain of the ship made Major Adams in charge because she was the highest ranking officer. And then we hear a story of how
these white whacks
were like, we're not going to have this Black woman over us. And basically the captain of the ship said, well, she is in charge because she's the highest ranking officer. And if that's a problem for you, you have 17 minutes to get off the boat. But that was the trip from the UK back to America. So these people had to shape up if they wanted to get back home, and of course they all did. There was an emotional moment because there's a ceremony in Vegas to honor the Buffalo soldiers, the Black male soldiers, and they incorporate the women of the 688, 5 living members. And there's a senator from Kansas who tells a story, and he kind of gets emotional, that I thought was a really nice inclusion.
It was nice, yes.
But overall, yeah, I think it's a nice companion. I still hope that something...
I feel like not only did these women deserve a better biographical narrative other than Tyler Perry, but they deserve a better documentarian as well.
Indeed. But there you have it. It is available on PBS for free. Like, you don't even have to log in. You can just watch it.
You can just watch.
Yeah.
Turn it on.
So if you're interested. My therapist has said that my constant bickering about Tyler Perry is toxic and that I should use that energy for something positive. So I want to start a new segment where we go over Black filmmakers who deserve some shine.
Which are basically all of them that are not Tyler Perry. And
instead of people in the comments defending him, but then I would presume you're not aware of some other people who deserve some attention.
Well, or I would say question yourselves, why are these people not household names? Why did they not get the budgets to make the stories they should be able to tell?
And I'm happy to know that Nick has constructed a very long list.
You asked me for this list yesterday, and I had a list of 50 names in under 5 minutes.
Now, we're not going to go over 50 names right now. What I want to do is spread them out and every week go over some names.
And that was just the people that are alive working right now.
Which proves my point that there are so many talented Black creatives that we could tap, but y'all want to defend this one. So, take it away.
Yeah, so some of these should definitely be notable to you, but first on my list is Ava DuVernay.
Yes, of course.
And I've chosen to try to highlight at least 2 of their films that if you had not seen them, it's requisite viewing. 3 for her, because I fell in love with her from her debut, I Will Follow, starring Sally Richardson Whitfield and Omari Hardwick and Lorraine Toussaint. But then she followed, Lorraine Toussaint's in her follow-up, Middle of Nowhere in 2012, for which I interviewed her for, and she won Best Director at the Sundance Film Festival that year, starring Emma Yahtzee Cornialdi, David Oyelowo, and Omari Hardwick. That is about a woman whose husband is incarcerated, and she's kind of unable to have access to him, and kind of starts a relationship with another man. And I believe David Oyelowo is the bus driver she kind of has feelings for in that. And then, of course, Selma, her 2014 film, which should have netted her a Best Director nomination, but of course, we're in the country we're in. Next on my list is Charles Burnett. I mean, if you have not seen any work by Mr. Burnett, I mean, the reason that how is this person not able to get another film made? Because it's been at least well over a decade before Mr. Burnett. But he's probably best known for his 1978 film, Killer of Sheep. And if you have not seen that, I think it's due for a re-release soon. I remember there was a theatrical re-release in 06, 07. But I think it has a new distributor and we're going to get a new restoration print. But that is about a slaughterhouse worker in Watts, and famous neighborhood in Los Angeles, and how he clearly doesn't like his job, and kind of you see him slowly realize that maybe he even doesn't like this damn family he's supporting. You can see this right now immediately. It's part of the Criterion Collection is To Sleep with Anger, his 1990 film, where Danny Glover plays this kind of evil drifter that suddenly shows up at this family's doorstep in South Central. Mary Alice, Carl Lumley, Shirley Ralph, Vanetta McGee. It's kind of dark, but it's a lot of fun. Next on my list is Chinonye Chukwu, who to her date only has 2 features, but both of them are excellent. Her debut was Clemency, which
Alfre Woodard should have received an Oscar nomination for.
I mean, Alfre Woodard is an Oscar nominee, but this should have been another nod for her. I cannot believe that she got bypassed. I cannot believe it. Excellent film, and she's a judge. This was on our top 10, both of our lists that year, if I remember correctly. And it's about the exoneration of this man played by Aldous Hodge, and whether or not she's going to assist.
She's the prison warden.
She's the prison warden. Sorry. And then Chukwu followed that up with Till, starring an excellent Danielle Deadweiler as the mother of Emmett Till,
who we just watched in Carry On.
Yes,
who I thought was a lot of fun in that.
But again, no Oscar nomination. It's really unbelievable. Anyway, both of those films highly recommended. Next on my list is Paris Barclay, who is probably still best known for Don't Be a Menace to South Central While Drinking Your Juice in the Hood. But he has a varied career. I think he's the reason that the Jeffrey Dahmer series from Ryan Murphy stands out so well because of episode 6, which he directed that episode. He also worked on the Lyle and Eric Menendez series. Done a lot of TV, a lot of music videos. He directed the music video for my favorite LL Cool J video, Mama Said Knock You Out. And I remember, I haven't seen this in years, but as a kid, he did this TV movie with Sinbad called The Cherokee Kid.
Oh, Sinbad.
And then last on today's crop of Black excellence is Dee Rees, who you are familiar with, Ms. Rees, because we saw Bessie together, starring Queen Latifah.
My favorite lesbian.
And Monique.
Not really.
But she came out right out the gate really strong with Pariah. It's also part of the Criterion Collection, which actually I will never forget seeing Kim Waynes play such a nasty person. But this is about a young woman who's a lesbian and coming to terms with her sexuality. Very well done. Excellent. But I have to say my favorite from Dee Rees thus far is her 2017 film Mudbound, which got several Oscar nominations, including for Mary J. Blige.
Oh, and the cinematographer of Mudbound,
Rachel Harrison,
She
just directed The Fire Inside, which
That's right.
Opens tomorrow as of this recording.
So there you go. 5 very talented Black filmmakers who deserve some positive energy instead of feeding into this diabolical dark image.
And all of them, could I'm sure would jump at the chance to be thrown some money to direct a movie at a studio that someone owns and not have them interfere in any way. But whatever.
Moving on to the restaurant section, I found an article that's titled "Chefs Weigh In on Which Items Are Absolutely Not Worth the Price at Restaurants."
Calamari.
Well, number one, not in any particular order, is lobster rolls. How many times have you ordered like lobster mac and cheese or lobster something?
Yeah.
And you're like, they only gave me like a little bit.
A little, like not even a whole claw in here.
And they're always like $40-$50.
Yeah, not worth it.
Another item are pasta dishes.
Oh, for sure.
They're usually very expensive and super cheap to make.
Oh, yeah.
I agree. And then oftentimes have the nerve to be like very small portions. How many times have we gone to like a nice restaurant for pasta and it's like $40-$50?
The nerve.
And it's like, I mean, I'm not really even full off this. And certainly there are no leftovers.
And I can make this shit at home, okay?
They say salads.
Sure.
I mean, mainly because a lot of times it's all pre-cut and they're just slapping it all together. So of course, but there's that. And then they say soup.
I believe it. Yeah, because you can prepare all that ahead of time. It can sit forever. Yep.
Well, and then they warn you of like ordering soup of the day because that's sort of like inventory they're trying to get rid of.
Oh yeah, that's like the day. We made all this tomato soup just right now.
And then they also mention never order like canned or tinned fish. I don't know that I've ever seen. So like,
I'm sure if you order tuna ever or anything tuna related, it's probably, that's canned.
Or like, I mean, sardines.
I don't know what kind of restaurant has sardines in there, but
well, sometimes like at nicer restaurants, your Caesar salad will have sardines on them.
Anchovies, yeah.
Or anchovies, which I guess would be tinned fish.
Niçoise.
Yeah. All right. The secret movie, which, since we're recording this 2 days after the last one, was my choice. And since this podcast is going to be published right before New Year's Eve, I wanted to pick something New Year's Eve related. And I chose the 1999 American action horror film, End of Days.
Directed by Peter Hyams.
Starring a Arnold Schwarzenegger. So, yeah. And actually, the bulk of the film takes place on the day this podcast publishes, December 29th, which I find funny. But yeah, this was something I had never seen before.
I haven't seen it since it came out. I remember seeing it with my dad and he didn't like it. Oddly, this opened around Thanksgiving in 1999. So, but which is
they
funny.
Thought it was going to have a long shelf life.
Well, it's funny because you have to remember this was made and shot and everything and feeding into kind of Y2K paranoia. So well before that was really at its height.
So what is End of Days about? At the end of the century, Satan visits New York in search of a bride. It's up to an ex-cop who now runs an elite security outfit to stop him. When I read that premise, well, I think as I was running through options, you said, oh my gosh, End of Days, do that one. And then I read the premise like, oh yeah, this seems ridiculous. And it is. the director. What do I know from this person?
Peter Hyams. I know you know that I love The Relic.
Oh, sure.
From 1997, starring Penelope Ann Miller in the Chicago Natural Museum of Art, where that strange hybrid creature gets let loose. You also might remember Time Cop, that Jean-Claude Van Damme film.
Oh, yes.
Which I also could rewatch. It's been a minute. In the 90s, I think was his best year. He remade Narrow Margin, which is a classic film noir starring Gene Hackman and Ann Archer. He might still be best known for, he did the sequel to 2001 A Space Odyssey, which was called 2010 The Year We Make Contact, which came out in 1984, which I must admit I still have never seen. And then he kind of petered out hard. I didn't see his last film, but he did a remake of a Fritz Lang film in 2009 called Beyond a Reasonable Doubt, starring Michael Douglas and I think Amber Tamblyn and some other Cornball Collins white male lead, like a Chase Crawford or someone of that ilk. But that is terrible. But anyway, The Relic's my favorite.
Okay, what is the story about? So the devil himself has come to New York City to impregnate a young woman who was selected 20 years prior to mother Satan's child. But it has to happen during a very specific time between the hours of 11 p.m. and midnight on New Year's Eve, 1999. So this woman played by
Robin Tunney,
who I don't know, she just something about her bothered me. We can get to it.
Oh, but I like her, but it might be due to my reverence for the craft.
So she is 20 years old. She was born in 1979, and she lives a very charmed life. She lives in this beautiful home in New York City, has everything she could ever want, but she suffers from visions that she has been told are just sort of part of like her mental illness, and that is not a big deal. But
just take another Xanax.
Everyone who surrounds her, I mean, they're basically shepherds for the devil.
They are.
So like her psychiatrist, Udo Kier, he's in on it. Her stepmother, Miriam Margolis, she's the
nurse that delivered her.
The opening of the film is 1979, and we're told that there is some sort of like
moon.
The moon. What do they call
the eye of God or something?
The eye of God. Like
there's a comet over the moon, looks like an eyebrow.
That's right. And so we're told that on that night, a girl child will be born, and she will bear the mark of the beast or something. Well, it looks like a horseshoe.
Or what are those little things in German language? An umlaut or something?
And that girl will be destined to be the bearer of Satan's spawn.
She's a womb for Satan.
So we see that she's born in New York City, and the nurse who delivers her.
So they must have killed the mother, the birth mother.
That's right. Miriam Margolis delivers her, and then takes her away, saying, "Oh, we got to clean her up." Runs down to the basement of the hospital, and Udo Kier is there with some other people, and they conduct a whole ass ritual,
which is killing a snake and bleeding it over the child and putting some of the snake blood in the baby's lips,
and then brings it back to the mother. And then we flash forward 20 years and presume that mother was killed or something. But anyway, this young lady is having visions of Satan and like dreaming that she's having sex with him. So basically Satan is grooming her.
These might just be wet dreams.
Well, she says that she's concerned that if she meets him, she might actually want to do something.
Well, and she calls Udo Kier, and he's like, "Take another Xanax. You're just fine."
Okay, so Satan, it comes like in spirit form. He looks like
he blasts up through the
manholes of New York City, like out of the sewer system.
Yeah,
which actually looked really cool. The production value of this movie for the bulk of it is quite impressive.
Yeah, I agree.
The ending falls off, but
it falls out really hard.
But we're going to get to that. Anyway, the devil, of course, has to occupy a human form,
a body,
and he takes the form of
Gabriel Byrne, who ironically this year was in Stigmata as a Catholic priest, where Patricia Arquette is suffering the wounds of Christ.
Oh,
also a cult classic.
So Gabriel Byrne's character is a notable person, and he how does Arnold Schwarzenegger fit into this? Arnold Schwarzenegger used to be like NYPD, but then he ended up leaving because of some trauma that
we
occurred.
eventually find why. Yeah.
So now he does private security, and he's like an alcoholic addicted to pain meds, although he looks like the fittest he's ever been. So he doesn't look like someone who's struggling physically, but he is guarding Gabriel Byrne when there's an attempt on his life.
By a tongueless priest named Thomas Aquinas.
And that name drove me crazy. So did Arnold Schwarzenegger's character's name.
Oh my God, Jericho Kane.
Jericho Kane. But the reason this tongueless priest is trying to kill Gabriel Byrne is because he knows that the devil's going to use his body. So the devil occupies Gabriel Byrne, and now he's like the devil walking around.
He gets Gabriel Byrne in the bathroom of this trattoria, and Gabriel Byrne is with this couple, and he comes out and takes this woman's titty out of her dress at the restaurant and starts macking on her hard.
Yeah, that was interesting.
That was, again, I think the first half hour of this movie is kind of strong. And then,
it is.
And then there are moments that are creepy because he walks out of the restaurant and it blows up. Everybody in it dies.
Yeah. So the bulk of it is the devil trying to find Robin Tunney because he knows.
I don't understand the conflict why he couldn't have just walked there that night. But anyway.
There's a lot that doesn't quite make sense to me. The only thing that makes sense to me is he can't impregnate her until the December 31st between the hours of 11 p.m. and midnight. So it seems like he's waiting to get her. Don't know why.
Yeah.
But the reason Arnold Schwarzenegger jumps in on this is because he is like the most overachieving bodyguard ever. Because after Gabriel Byrne gets shot, Arnold Schwarzenegger and his partner, played by Kevin Pollak, are investigating the shooting.
Yes.
And through that, they discover...
Okay, so they apprehend Father Aquinas, and then CCH Pounder is a detective that shows up that she's like, what do you mean, Jericho? You talk to him. He doesn't have a tongue. Are you drinking again? But he had shot the man. He's in the hospital. And then Gabriel Byrne kills this man in the hospital in a kind of a corny scene and then strings him up in the shape of a cross on the ceiling and carves words are carved into his stomach. And part of those words are a name that's close to Christine York, Robin Tunney's character.
So next we see Arnold Schwarzenegger and Kevin Pollak go to like their headquarters. I'm not sure if they still have connections to the NYPD.
I don't know.
But they go through the database to look up Christine York. And immediately her picture pops up.
Meanwhile, we're talking about New York.
But anyway.
Whatever. Anyway.
They go to see her, and there's an attempt on her life because some priests.
Some League of Extraordinary Priests.
They realize, because here's the thing I didn't mention. The devil's come back to impregnate this woman to begin the end of days.
Yes.
So he can walk on earth and basically rule. So, of course, that's like the end of the world. So these priests realize like the only solution is to kill this lady, to kill Robin Tunney. Which, if you ask me, that would be plan A, B, and C. But
why doesn't the devil have a backup plan? Why aren't there several hoes out here that he can do whatever he wants to?
We reviewed a movie like 2 years ago that had a similar premise where they're trying to impregnate like the devil.
Didn't they have DNA from the Shroud of Turin?
Yes, that one.
What was that dumb thing called?
I don't know. But it's maybe the devil has fertility issues. Why is it so hard for him to?
I don't know. It seems like he can do all these other things. Like you can't find another.
It can't be all these women's problem. It's he's the problem. But anyway, so Arnold Schwarzenegger goes to see Robin Tunney.
The devil conspiracy.
He goes to see Robin Tunney, and there's an attempt on her life, and he's able to save her. And that's when he realizes that there's something going on. But it's important to know that Arnold Schwarzenegger doesn't believe in God. But it's one of those, like, because there can't be a God if someone killed my wife.
It's much like Mel Gibson in Signs. But he's like, your stepmother has a bunch of religious books. And Robin Tunney's like, oh, well, it's a hobby. And then he takes one of these books.
And he gleams that the people who came to attack her are part of this, like, Catholic or some order.
He grabs a random book.
Yeah. It's the story is pretty thin in some areas, but for the middle part of the movie, it's basically like Arnold Schwarzenegger trying to make sense of what's happening. He gets visited by the devil as Gabriel Byrne. And the devil, basically, Arnold believes in God because he's forced to believe in the devil. So then he goes back to the priest, not Thomas Aquinas, but
Rod Steiger, Oscar winner Rod Steiger, everyone.
And then that's where they better understand like what's happening. And so Arnold Schwarzenegger thinks this casting is so crazy, which we need to get into, but Arnold thinks that he can basically kill the devil, even though he has seen the devil do some wild stuff. But everything culminates in the devil capturing Robin Tunney, taking her to a ceremony
where it's like, are all these the New York faction of Satanists aware? Like, how are they able to? Did anybody get to travel there, like the January 6th insurrection?
Also,
like,
can't he just go to a hotel and get her pregnant?
Right? Like, who are all these people?
But of course, Arnold shows up, disrupts it, and takes Robin Tunney. So there's like a final showdown in a church. And that's where the devil shows his true form, which is horrible CGI of like this dragon looking thing. And then it
enters Arnold.
It possesses Arnold.
Jericho Kane.
Which I don't know why it didn't do like an hour sooner.
It made me feel like the skeleton key. Like now that he believes he's susceptible to this nonsense.
I think your rationale makes sense, but the script didn't give that to us.
Yeah.
So the final moments are Arnold Schwarzenegger is about to sexually assault Robin Tunney to get her pregnant, when Arnold's Jericho Kane's like willpower is stronger than the devil's, and he tells Robin Tunney run, and Arnold commits seppuku.
Yeah, he impales himself.
The end.
Yeah, and then finally New York gets to party like it's the end of 1999. I knew we were in trouble when Mark Margolis is the Pope.
Oh, damn.
At the very beginning. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's interesting casting. If you remember him as Ace Ventura's crotchety neighbor.
Also, when the Pope is notified that it's a blood tiger moon or whatever the hell it's called, the Eye of God, he says you need to like dispatch everyone to find the girl, like globally,
like in the movie Willow.
Like, what are we? What's the magnitude? What is the scale of what's happening?
Or when we were trying to find Moses, I guess.
Oh, and then of course it doesn't work because how could it? How could they know? Like every birth
I know, yes.
on this day, like it doesn't even make sense.
Every lady girl birth. I think it squanders the interesting elements, such as the Robin Tunney character, who really has no characterization. But it's like, this girl was born and bred to be a vessel for Satan. What is that experience like?
Well, that was the most interesting part to me, but that's a different movie, and that's not the movie we got.
It is, and it makes me,
and I need to stop lamenting on like what I didn't get.
Right. Well, it just makes me. It also drives home that these religious-based horror films also are rigidly centered on other structures, like the construction of gender and Satan needing a vagina and a womb to have spawn.
Something about Robin Tunney in this movie, her hairdo drives me crazy, and then her nose and mouth. It was giving me like, I can't. Almost like Macaulay Culkin in Home Alone, but then her mouth is always open like P. Diddy. I don't know. There was something about her that just bothered me.
She's supposed to be concerned for her life.
Part of it is because, like you said, there's not much characterization to her except that she thinks she's mentally ill, but...
Well, I thought she kind of looked like she could be the sibling of Jonathan Tucker with that hairdo.
That's a good one too. Okay, you had said that there was a memory of a scene from this movie.
Yes.
And so when I saw it, I was like, oh no. It's basically Arnold getting up in the morning.
Kevin Pollak wakes him up. Yeah.
And it seems like he has a hangover. And Arnold gets up again in peak physical form.
And this is after heart surgery.
And this mother gets up, walks into the kitchen and grabs leftovers, some of them off the floor,
a piece of pizza, some Chinese food,
some coffee,
and
some goddamn Pepto-Bismol, and does what?
Puts it in a blender and drinks it. I still remember my dad being like, "This is stupid." As we're watching.
That's just, unnecessary. It's just really unnecessary.
It's just corny, as is kind of Arnold's whole persona in this kind of dark, creepy film.
Well, let's talk about it. So apparently Tom Cruise.
Yeah, who did Magnolia instead, but they wanted Tommy Boy.
Could you have seen Tom Cruise in this role?
No.
I think that it definitely needed to be someone we can take seriously.
That as a broken person. Like
as a broken person.
I think Mickey Rourke, and that's in my mind because of Angel Heart, but maybe him.
I mean, honestly, anyone but Arnold Schwarzenegger.
But it's fun. There were so many films like this around this period because there was, like I said, Stigmata.
Well, Arnold is doing this whole like, well, he makes those faces. He does that. Like,
Yes.
It's just hard to take him seriously in any of these scenes.
But it's better than something like Bless the Child with Kim Basinger. But like I think this could have been as good. And this is a B movie, but
well, I don't know. I think I enjoyed Bless the Child more.
But that's total camp. I think it's a B movie, but Fallen, starring Denzel Washington, about the demon jumping from body to body while they sing the Rolling Stones' "Time Is on My Side."
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, so clearly these were collective fears that the movie industry was mining. But I don't know. This one just it falls apart really hard, and part of that is the fault of Arnold Schwarzenegger.
That being said, I do think like the first hour was a lot of fun. Like the concept, Arnold in the first half of the film is still kind of amusing.
Mm-hmm.
There's some really cool visuals, like you mentioned, the restaurant blowing up. There's a scene where the devil walks out of a building and he sees a skateboarder with a shirt that says Satan rocks, I think.
Satan rules.
Satan rules. And the devil goes, "Oh, I like your shirt." And the kid kind of blows him off. So the devil makes it so that the kid gets hit by a bus. So I think there was a lot of fun to be had in the opening.
I think Gabriel Byrne is good as the devil.
Compared to someone like
Al Pacino in The Devil's Advocate.
Where he's just
screaming like an old bird. Also with the Rolling Stones reference in that movie.
You said Miriam Margolyes had something to say about Arnold in this movie?
Yeah, she said she said that she didn't like her scene with him. He farted in her face, apparently. I can't remember if she said that as a Drag Race judge or where, but she has said that story.
There is a character in the first part of the film who is an albino.
Mm-hmm. I remember that person. I think this trailer, I kid you not, I remember in 1999 was all over everything.
That character is pretty creepy.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a scene with this character on a bus with Robin Tunney. And he basically is like, she's sitting on or the subway and he's standing in front of her in a really uncomfortable way. And she doesn't know what to do but give him money. And then he
pockets that money.
He pockets the money. And then he tells her like, basically the devil's going to come and have sex with you.
Mm-hmm.
And she freaks out and she grabs him and he crumbles, like disintegrates.
Yes.
And like you said, where'd the money go?
Like, can I get, did she still have her money? That was my question. Like, did she
Where's
really?
that money you put in your pocket?
In your pretend pocket since you don't exist.
Okay. So Robin Tunney's character's name is Christine. And I thought she was laughable.
No.
All of her dialogue. Why do I see things? Why am I so different?
Yeah, she is very damsel in distress with no kind of sense of agency. Like, does the woman mark for the devil? Does she not get to unmark herself? Like, what? I just don't understand how this works because it's all silly. But
well, and Arnold's character, I think I was enjoying in the first half because he's so skeptical. Because the priest, not
Rod Steiger,
yes, he is telling Arnold about like that the devil this and this is what's happening, and Arnold in that accent is like, now I have to believe in God to solve a crime.
But why Rod Steiger is the one charged with the unfortunate exposition of why the mark of the beast is not 666 because what's his nuts that saw that number in his dreams things are backward. It's 999 as in 1999.
He goes 666 becomes 999 like it's 1999.
Yeah, Prince. No,
I mean that
was bad.
That dialogue alone deserves a Razzie for worst screenplay.
Yeah, like couldn't we come up with anything else to and as you pointed out, Arnold has a joke about, is it in Eastern time that this has to happen?
Yeah, when the priest tells him like, oh, between the hours of 11 p.m. and midnight, and Arnold's like, oh, so like, is that Eastern time? And then the priest has some answer about the ancient whatevers and the sun and the stars, and I just thought that was all so weak.
Mm-hmm.
And for something that's so going to be like obviously we put into question they needed to spend a little more time on that dialogue.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So we get a scene again. The first half, specifically with Gabriel Byrne's character, is really interesting because there's a scene where we see him having sex with a mother-daughter.
It's
and
Udo Kier's wife and daughter,
and they're morphing, and then we realize that it's a dream that Robin Tunney's having.
That is to me, that's the creepiest part of the movie.
Well, and then right after that, the devil goes to the hospital to visit Thomas Aquinas. And so when he tries to get in, a security guard tries to stop him, and the devil looks at him and goes, "The young boys you have seduced have left their scent on you. Remember who it is you serve." And then the guy looks at him freaked out and lets him in. I would have just preferred a movie. We didn't even need Arnold Schwarzenegger.
No.
I would have much preferred seeing the devil coming to like New York and trying to figure out where this young lady is, which to me does not make sense because all these shepherds for the devil are holding her.
Mm-hmm.
Why was it so like for 20 years y'all didn't have a plan for like a smooth transition? Like I don't understand.
Well, so another kind of shocking part is there was the attempt made on Christine's life, and one of the minions is killed in that scuffle. So it's just Miriam playing Mabel, and Udo calls Miriam and says, "You need to bring Christine over here now because the devil wants her." And she's like, "No, we're being watched. There's no way out. They'll follow me to the temple." And Udo goes and delivers that message to Gabriel Byrne, and he punches right through his head.
Oh, I wrote down that the devil literally knocks Udo's block off.
Yep. And then he's like, "I guess I'll have to go to her myself." But then it's like, yeah, why didn't you? Why? Why?
That was pretty funny.
And then later when Mabel gets hemmed up and she's like bleeding out and dying, Gabriel Byrne kneels before her. What does he say? He's like, "You're just a failure. This is not someone you want to work for." Okay.
No, but he's fun. Another funny moment is Kevin Pollak at one point is hitting on CCH Pounder, which just felt like it came out of nowhere.
Well, and it's like,
not that either of them wouldn't find each other attractive, but it just felt so like, okay.
But it's like, wow, okay, interesting. And then another reveal is that she's in league with the devil.
Okay, so I'm glad you brought that up because we see several people who we've met in cahoots with the devil, but I'm wondering, like, do you think they were all, like, have they been in on this since forever?
Since Jump?
Or do you think that he just influenced them? Like, now that he's on Earth as Gabriel Byrne, just how he influenced that security guard.
But if it just doesn't make sense. Like, he knows the identity of Christine York. Like, why couldn't he have given that vision to the detectives in charge? It doesn't make any sense.
You already brought this up, but when Arnold grabs that random book and then discovers the amulet, and then he's trying to explain the order of like the priest who tried to kill her, but they're like the good guys.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, again, I think Arnold Schwarzenegger's accent and his physical presence lend itself to like more comedic,
or something less serious.
And so it was just so laughable. But again, the visuals up to this point are still very good. We get a moment where they both see, because up to this point, Christine, Robin Tunney's character, thinks she's mentally ill and that she's hallucinating. But then when Arnold's explaining to her the priest who tried to kill her, she's holding an apple, and all of a sudden the apple, you see all these bodies like screaming out of the apple, which I thought looked really good.
It looked good.
The CGI for 1999 looks really good for a lot of
And going back to, right, Eve taking the apple, right?
Yeah.
I think didn't Stan Winston do the creature effects on this?
Oh. But Robin Tunney, for the first time, realizes that she's not having a hallucination because Arnold says he also saw it. So, I think that there's a lot of good stuff in here.
Yes. We have to remember that Peter Hyams did his own cinematography as well.
Oh.
And the film is very dark.
Yes.
Like it feels like a world crumbling or hurtling towards the end. And it also made me really jealous because I was a teenager that was grounded on the night of Y2K that, God, what I would have loved to have been in New York on December 31st, 1999.
So while Arnold is still at Robin Tunney's house, he we see the devil has approached and recognizes that there's police there.
Mhm.
So we see the devil urinate against a wall, and his urine is flammable.
Mhm.
And so he destroys a cop car and then kills Kevin Pollak. But we find out at the end, towards the end, that he saved Kevin Pollak if he pledged his
Servitude to Satan.
right. So I thought, again, that was really cool. And then we get a fight scene with Miriam Margolyes and Arnold Schwarzenegger, and her character is like has superhuman strength,
Yeah,
which I thought needed to be explained better.
This needs to be where the farting happened.
Yeah, that needed to be explained better. But it was a fun scene because then the house is burning down while they're fighting. Okay, that one priest who's not
Rod Steiger.
So in his church in the basement, they have a woman tied up with the stigmata.
Uh-huh.
And I just thought that was
Arnold just followed him in there, and Rod Steiger turns around and was like, forget that you hadn't seen this.
And then Arnold's like, stop all this church talk and tell us what's going on.
In case you didn't know, Rod Steiger won his Oscar for In the Heat of the Night.
Okay, so when Arnold finally meets the devil, the devil's in Arnold's apartment, and basically the devil shows Arnold how his wife and daughter were killed because he was not there that night to save them. And so, of course, that upsets Arnold. And the devil's trying to entice him, like, listen, I can bring your daughter back. All you need to do is give me Christrine, as Maria Bamford would say. And I have to say, what the devil was offering didn't sound that bad, because he's like, it's time for like, because Arnold's like, oh, so you can rule the world. And he's like, well, it's time for like a different way of thinking.
Yeah,
and,
changing command.
And he's like, I'm way nicer. I don't punish my, because basically the devil is saying that God is like a cruel God and he lets these things happen. And I'm not like that. And,
But we've seen what you do to your minions that don't give you what you want.
True, but like most villains, it's like, oh, I mean, you don't not make sense.
Right. Yeah.
You just seem egomaniacal. But then we get a scene again where it's like, because I'm sure Arnold insisted in any role he took that he always prevailed. So we get a scene where he fights the devil and throws the devil out a window.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was so dumb.
Yeah.
Okay. My question is, because, oh my God, why can't I remember the priest's name?
Rod Steiger.
He is trying to tell the priest who want to kill Robin Tunney that you can't prevent evil by doing evil. But these priests are like, hello, we're going to sacrifice one person to save billions. Like, what are we talking about here?
Mm-hmm.
So I want to pose the question, my vote would be that they should have killed Robin Tunney.
So good, so good, so good.
Get ready, because Clear the Rack is on at your Nordstrom Rack store. Now through Thursday, find incredible deals on Wear Now styles on sale for even less at Nordstrom Rack. Take an extra 25% off red tag clearance throughout the store from brands like UGG, Vince, Stuart Weitzman, AG, and more. All sales final. The best stuff goes fast. So shop this sale at Nordstrom Rack today. Please see NordstromRack.com or ask a store associate for details.
The holidays aren't about where you're going. They're about the moments you share along the way. Experience the joy of connection at the Lincoln Wish List sales event. Right now, visit your local Lincoln retailer or Lincoln.com to find exclusive holiday offers on current and past Lincoln models. Let's make more connections and more joy this season.
I mean, but that's kind of like a Band-Aid on the situation also. Like,
until there's another blood moon,
but
or
just,
whatever it's
just
called.
One woman. Why is it just one? Why isn't there several many? Again, do you know that there are women out here? Again, I don't believe that Satan is real, but if he was and he wanted to get somebody pregnant, there would be people lining up to do it. There would be.
But if there is only one woman who Satan can get pregnant from the hours of 11 p.m. to midnight, and he is around the corner, we're going to have to kill this lady. But it just doesn't even make sense.
I don't understand why he can't find somebody that's consenting, because it would save him a whole lot of problems. And I don't just mean because sexual assault is wrong. I mean, it'd be a sure thing. Don't you want a sure thing? Like, I don't get it.
So when the devil finally gets Christine, they're in the back of a limo. and he's sitting really close to her. And I thought that was really creepy, the way he's looking at her and smiling, which was giving me Willem Dafoe.
Oh, God. Yeah.
And then he gets out of the limo and sees Arnold Schwarzenegger and gets like into a fight with him and basically like knocks him out and leaves him there. And this is where the film fell off for me.
Where he's getting beaten by all those
Because why didn't the
figures.
devil just kill Arnold?
I don't know. And he says at one point, doesn't he, that like
He says I should have just killed you.
I didn't want to kill you.
But I don't understand why not. He killed other people so easily. Why did he save Arnold Schwarzenegger beyond the fact that it was in his contract to not die? But I just I just don't understand. This is where it fully fell.
Yeah, it's just too bad because rewatching it, my memories of it were that it wasn't good. But I'm like, I was having a lot of fun with it for at least the first 30 minutes, and then
the consummation, procreation ceremony,
the
whatever,
Emancipation Proclamation
was so
the Procreation Proclamation.
The Procreation Proclamation. It just felt so extra. And then
again, tradition messes everybody up. You don't need all that. Okay.
But then, of course, like I said, Arnold interrupts it, takes Robin Tunney, and is threatening to kill her. Which is like, that's what you should have done an hour ago.
And then she's like, what are you doing? He's like, just trust me.
Then the devil's trying to convince Arnold. Arnold's not listening. And so the devil goes, I didn't want to have to do this, but come on out. And then Kevin Pollak comes out. And I don't know why that would have mattered. Like, so you think Arnold won't kill Kevin to save the girl? Like, I thought that was really poorly done.
It was, because then Kevin Pollak is also able to overcome the devil's temptation and then burns to death in front of their eyes. And it's like, okay.
I did think that was kind of creepy. But then again, it's just like, I don't understand what kind of power the devil has, because he seems to be able to do whatever he wants, except the most obvious basic things.
Right.
Instead of setting Kevin Pollak on fire, couldn't you have done something to Arnold so he lets go of Robin Tunney? I don't.
But then it poses all of these. What's the word I'm looking for? These truths of the situation, like Satan saying, "How do you expect to defeat me when you are but a man and I am forever?" But then he does.
Well, and I'm sure theologians would argue it's about free will and blah, blah, blah. And it's sure, but the movie's not telling us that.
Right.
So then it just seems kind of crazy. So then Arnold gets away with Robin Tunney and runs into a church. And that's when we hear him say, please, God, help me. So he finally believes.
God's like, okay, you big loser. Here I am.
I'm confused because we were told earlier that the devil cannot come into the house of God,
consecrated ground.
But then the devil smooth walks in to the church like he's walking into 7-Eleven. It doesn't even make sense. And then he tears shit up and turns into that big winged thing that looked terrible.
Yeah, that did look pretty dumb. Also, you have to remember, if we're going on what the Bible says, that Lucifer was the most beautiful thing ever made, that ever existed. And I don't know. I guess I don't understand why he looks like a dragon creature. Unless the beauty of the beauty
he's a fallen angel.
Right, but the beauty standards in heaven are different. Well, then,
I don't know. None of it makes sense.
But when he can choose his own image back on earth, wouldn't it want to? I don't know. Anyway,
I think that had the character of Jericho, what's his last name?
Kane.
Jericho Kane had been a different actor, the film could have been maybe 30 minutes shorter.
With a different name.
Because I think the whole thing should have been if I had to rework this script, I would have shortened it and just made it about how do we keep this girl away from the devil from 11 p.m. to midnight.
Right.
That's all you had to do. But then you have this A-list action star who only wants to be seen in a very specific light. So we have the devil, or we have Arnold Schwarzenegger fighting the devil, which just seems so stupid. Anyway, what would you give End of Days?
2.
Yeah, unfortunately, I would give it 2 out of 5. I'm glad I watched it. I am impressed by the production quality, though. Yeah. It's just so weird that it's almost like the final 30 minutes they kind of gave up.
Yeah, and I don't know if there were a lot heavy compromises made based on how studios work, but
I do think it's funny that it really is like a New Year's Eve. It's more of a New Year's Eve movie than a lot of movies that are like about New Year's.
Yeah, it's heavily focused.
It's very focused on New Year's Eve
because we see this ball gonna drop
and
in
then
Times Square, like
ball drop.
Like, oh my God, that means it's almost time. We're gonna die.
Okay, moving on. Do you have any New Year's resolutions?
I haven't thought about that yet. We have a week.
Oh, well. Then I guess we'll say...
What about you?
The usual.
What's that?
Stay positive.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Make better food choices.
Yeah, we've been doing well.
So I'm sure that will... I'll fail, but, the intention is there.
Mm-hmm.
But for everyone else who has good intentions and don't want to fail, good luck to you.
Oh, yes.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Is there anything else you want to say?
No.
Ta-ta.